Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
yes.
A boundary might have been crossed that you, right?
That's
so
correct.
just an example
That's
of, it is a great example. I appreciate that for giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen difference as negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Yes, sir. What's up, everyone? I'm back. Thanks for holding the fort down and having some great conversations while I was away. And thank you to everyone who's just been tuning in, rocking out with us as we're coming to the close of this upcoming season. You know, we've got some changes we're going to make. We've got some new exciting topics, more guests. Really excited for that. But before we get into that, I'm one of your hosts, Justin.
And I am Dr. Lynn.
This is Working It Out Across Generations, the show where we talk all things conflict, big and small. And being that we have a conflict resolution background professionally, we try to give some tips for reconciliation. Now, I'm really excited for this topic. It's one that we've been sitting on for a while. And we've had so many conversations, both in a meeting space about the show and just in a personal space as well with family, you know, while we're breaking bread or while we're just hanging out. And so I imagine other people have had this conversation or posed this question in their households or in their spaces as well. So we thought it'd be a good one to bring to the show today. And we're talking about appropriation versus appreciation. And I'm going to let Dr. Lynn take over from here.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. We've been sitting on this show for a while, trying to figure out what's the best thing to say. What do we want to say about this? And when do we want to do this? And I think that we just decided, let's just throw it up and see, because we have our own opinions on it. I'm wondering also, is it more discussed in your generation than in mine? Because it's definitely discussed in mine, but it's in depending on what people do or depending on how big the example is. And I'm going to talk about one of the hugest examples that is definitely labeling me a boomer when we start talking about generational things. But what is appreciation? What is appropriation? Can people from different cultures say, absolutely not. This, you cannot use this, you cannot take this, you cannot act as if this is yours, you made it up, or oh, can people really show appreciation? Like, I really love this. This is why I did this. This is why I did, the biggest one for me, hairstyle, right? Especially when it comes to Black people wearing our braids. We'll talk about that. But in any case, is there really such a thing? I'm going to say on both sides, right? Is there really such a thing as appropriating? But the question
there definitely is. There has to
is
be.
there really such a thing as appreciating without appropriating? I think I don't even really feel like there's a fine line. I just feel like accusations go flying. Explanations, excuses go flying, but conversation never truly really happens. I've seen some people try to teach on this, but I would say I don't think we're having the conversations, and I'm hoping that we'll jumpstart some of that today.
Yeah, I think my generation does have a lot more of this conversation, and probably more on the pointing out the appropriation rather than staying in or exploring further what real appreciation looks like for them. And I think that we have to do that ourselves, regardless of who you are, a little bit more in the first place before we go calling other people out on their stuff and all that nature, right? Like, what does real appreciation look like to you? Right? Yeah. What does it really feel like? Like, if there are certain ways in which you could describe it, can you and could you if you were asked to? You know what I mean? Like, and it's one of those things where I just think it's one of those topics where we do too much trying to sweep in front of other people's front yards as opposed to our own, right? Because I will say personally, right? Like, if we're talking about people's cultures, right, and all the things that go into that, so that's food, that's as some of the things we mentioned, right? That's hairstyles, right? Certain things like that, right? Clothing, right? Like, I personally don't feel like I don't have to wear the clothing or wear the hairstyle to show my appreciation. Now, if you do, right, that's okay. But I think it's more about, like, have you done that work? Have you really sat with yourself? Have you really fallen asleep on this topic, woke up and done the work again, like revisited this topic? And then is that really what you landed on as far as you being able to show appreciation, feel like you're appreciating something, right, by essentially embodying part of this different culture that is not yours, right? And I think that, again, if that's what you do, cool. But I know for me, I don't have to do I don't have to put my hair a certain way. I don't have to wear the clothes. I don't have to whatever to really appreciate something. And I think that we get into appropriation or the conversation of appropriation when people start to, really deeply dive into these other areas that they try to embody for themselves. And there's an element of that I believe is okay. And that is, like, honestly, real appreciation, right? So, for instance, for me, like, when it comes to other cultures, right, I try to think about, like, the chemical makeup of this culture, right? So I might have a certain respect of resilience, right, for a certain culture. I might have a respect of the mindset and mentality that this culture has, having gone through certain hardships, right? And that's what I can appreciate, the history and things of that nature, right? And as far as clothing or whatever, right, I may go to, like, an event where it's some sort of holiday for that culture or whatever it is, and I'm around the people, I'm really, indulged in what's going on, right? But like I said, I don't have to feel the need to put on the clothes to really feel like I'm showing that my appreciation and my respect and my honor for this walk of life that is different from mine is really there and exists. So I really think it's just like a foundational ask that we have to sit with ourselves for a little bit and spend some time and keep that door open as far as what do these things really look like to you? What do they feel like to you? How do you know when you're appreciating something and when it possibly doesn't feel in alignment and out of touch with yourself, right? And I think that's something we got.
And how do you respond when people call you out in
That's
whatever the case is? But Andrea and Gordon, I hope you are still here. I saw y'all in the house. Hey, and yes, I agree. Welcome back, Justin, because
Appreciate
y'all
you
have got to help me with my examples, right? So
you guys definitely have examples. Anyone watching definitely have examples.
But I'm talking about from back in the day. That's why I'm asking. So here's the deal. One, anybody who's watching, right? Do y'all remember the Bo Derek look? Oh my God, what movie was that? Yes.
What is
Bo Derek, actress, white woman, blonde, and her hairstylist, who was African American, as I remember, or Black, certainly, decided that they would create something stunning that would make her stand out because she was already gorgeous, and they cornrowed her hair. And so the promos for the pic were of her running on the beach and the hair swinging. They did not call it cornrows. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting excited because I was angry for probably a decade around this one.
Yeah, I mean,
they called it the Bo Derek look. And it wasn't until Black people were just shouting in the streets, as we do.
Yeah, you guys know what you're talking about.
They do, yes, yeah. That then they started on the news teaching the history of cornrows. But they were going to say that it was invented just for her and that she made it famous. And oh my gosh. And there were people that were saying that. So that's number one. And y'all remember that. Thank you. What they say, you know, I got to go to comments and say, yeah, okay, Gordon, that's the next one I'm going to. Gordon said she probably got her hair braided in Jamaica. Now you laughing. Now this is the next one. Okay.
Yes. I have a lot of examples of that too. See, there we go.
All right.
There we go. Good thing I'm back, guys. Jesus.
All right. So that's number one. When I went to Jamaica, yes, everybody's getting their hair braided. Yeah. Or I would see people come back from Jamaica who were not Jamaican, who frankly were white, right? Who had their hair and they were like, everybody does it on vacation. It's not a big thing. But do you know the history? Do you understand?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's such a great point of like the reasoning as to when you get called out or asked about it, right? Like, if you really appreciated something, then I doubt that the reasoning as to why you're doing it would be just because everyone else is doing it and because that's just how it is or that's just how it goes. Another prime example, right? Which will add to yours, right? This, bro, stop touching stuff. Jesus. But another great example that'll add to your point, right? Think about sports teams.
Okay. Yes, that's right.
The now Commanders, which used to be a term that we're not going to say here, right? But we know what the team used to be.
Yes.
And also, the baseball team, right? The Guardians, which were once the Cleveland Indians, right? So thinking about the reasoning as to, why, I imagine you've heard this too, but the reasoning as to why people felt the need to keep the teams, the names that they were and all that stuff, right? So that's just how it is. That's just history. There's a lot of history to that being their name, not exactly to what they're naming.
It could be true, except folks from the culture were screaming that it's derogatory.
And if they had a problem with it. Yeah,
that's
for sure.
the piece for me,
for sure.
Right? While we all can't agree and we're all not a monolith, but when people are pushing back in numbers, especially, and you refuse to listen, you are appropriating. You are not appreciating. Yeah. So yes, so the trip to Jamaica, and I saw. I'm going to say another thing for me, real personal for me. I have worn my hair in locks for over 30 years, right? And before I got my hair locked, right? And some people call it dreadlocks. And see, that's another thing, right? So I used to call it dreadlocks. I got schooled by a lot of people who said you need to listen to the history of that. You're calling something your hair personal that you love dreadlocks, right? Again, everybody may not agree with me, but what they said was you don't want a negative term associated with your hair, so you can call it locks, but people do call it dreadlocks. Okay, so here's the deal. My girlfriend and her family, 21 children, right? She had 20 siblings, right?
Damn.
Almost all of them, I'm thinking, almost all of them had their hair locked. So before I got mine, she literally pulled me in a room and said, okay, let me just say this to you. This is not a fad for me. So what is it that you know about locking your hair, and how long you going to do this? Because if you're going to do it for a short period of time and now you're done with it, like, I'm letting you know I'm going to have a problem. And so I actually sat down with people, including when I was in Jamaica, and asked about what can you tell me about it, the history, and thought about that before I had my cousin who had her hair in locks do my hair. She did my hair, started my locks, continued my locks for a year. And she just talked about the, just the beauty and the history of it, and to take it seriously, and to make sure that it always looks nice and clean, and that you really revere this because it has a history behind it. So for me, that's not me appropriating. Right? That's me making the decision after all of that to appreciate and decide that's what I want to do with my hair. And I got to tell you, I love it. I love it. I love it. My hair has never been this healthy. It's never been as long. It was never long before I locked it. Yes.
Yeah, this goes right into what I was about to say, Andrea. Thank you. I'm going to read this, though. It says, one of the best ways to understand and appreciate another culture is by listening to those who are a part of the fabric of that society. Listen to the stories, understand the implications behind the aspects of their culture that you are interested in, and use that understanding to broaden your worldview.
Yes.
I agree with this 110%. This actually goes into a little bit of, just my generational take around here. I feel like we do talk about it, like I said, from more of an appropriation standpoint rather than an appreciation standpoint. And I feel like the way we do it is by simply not doing enough of, Andrea, some of what you were talking about, right? Like really putting our feet to the ground and going into those spaces and genuinely inquiring and all of these things, right? I think that also in the age of social media, right, we're seeing people who do all these world tours and all of these, just their documentation of their travels and things of that nature, right? And while that's great, and they may give you a few facts about something they learned and stuff like that, and while that's great, I think that, if that's who this one person is, right, and they build a following and they whatever, I don't imagine that, like, their followers are necessarily going to go out of their way to try to experience that for themselves, because they have a screen that's essentially teaching them all of the things that they want to learn in the first place. And then essentially a teacher in that person who makes that content, giving them honestly like a little 2-minute history lesson on social media, right? And I think that when that's your way of doing the learning or asking the questions, right, working in a comment section on those kinds of videos or whatever, right, like that's not really, like you said, getting the same even just experience and or connection that you could get from putting yourself out there. And if it's booking that flight, book that flight. If it's making that drive to a certain stand to support a business that's selling, it could be jewelry or it could be food or whatever it is, right? And really, really making that human connection, then you're not really appreciating really the differences of, how people do things and how people live their lives. And, we just need more young people to, book that trip, or do what they got to do and go to those places
that are different from you, from the culture you can
100%. 100%. I've always kept a diverse group of friends around me, and there's reason for that. And I know that, for plenty of people who maybe don't have the most diverse groups, there's reasons for that too, right? But life is too short. Life is too complex. Life is also just too different and in a good way, in a deep way, for us to live in just one singular way.
We're connected through the internet. People. You can get info. You can get FaceTime with people.
Yes. And so you have to want to do that. And I think that we need to get that instilled into young people more, because to be quite frank, I'm not really into the whole Europe tour, right? That's just not me personally. I love to travel, right? But I'm not necessarily into, like having pizza in Italy or things like that, right? Because even though that is the appreciation that I'm talking about, right? Like I'm more of the like history nerd. I'm more of the, show me this building that has such rich history and gone through certain eras, right? And how people use this as a hub for whatever, right? Like that's just an example. But I think that even then you're not gonna learn that stuff through a screen and through someone else's social media page, because they took the chance and not you.
Yeah.
Right. So we need young people to think about.
Comment section is blowing up with some really good stuff. Now, Justin, because I don't want this comment to disappear. Do you know anything about this? We're going to show Ethan Chang, Carmela Anthony, and Jeremy Lin incident.
Not remembering right now. If you want to explain a little more, remember when you explain.
Give us a little summary, because I don't know.
Yeah,
and
probably will
remember. And Google on screen because we live. So if you do, all right. But then Gordon teaching, right? So Gordon said, in Jamaica, when it comes to locks, right? In Jamaica, most of it was religious. That's exactly what I learned. They quoted the Nazareth vow of not putting a blade to their hair, Nazarite vow, which the Rastafarians, they quoted that. That is correct. And again, so while I'm in Jamaica and we're going over, canoeing over, being shown by a guide of Dunn's River Falls, and my hair's like this, not quite as long, and he's asking me, do you know the history? Do you know about Rastafarians and why? So I'm learning. I'm like in Jamaica learning about a hairstyle that they may feel I've appropriated, right? Here's this Black American coming over, and he even said, we see a lot of Americans with this hairstyle
that do not know the history.
That's correct.
And that's my point. It's like, do your homework. You know what I mean? Like, do some homework before you go doing that thing, embodying that thing that is just not what you come from. Mm-hmm. It's that simple, because it's honestly not a big ask, I don't think, to do a little research, to put yourself out there, and you only get benefits from that. Like, you learn things, you get data, right? Even if people were to have an issue with the way that you show up and in this certain way, right? That's data to work with for informed decisions later on in your life when this thing comes up. Life presents to you the same kinds of situations until you figure out, how to better respond to them, right? And so it's not one of those things I think we need to be discouraged by, but it's definitely not one of those things where we need to discourage the person who's native to this way of living because you somehow don't feel comfortable with them feeling uncomfortable that you're trying to embody something that is theirs, right? And I think that, the conversation around ownership of certain things, I think that we try to take that away and take that out of the equation, which is it's not really acknowledging fully who people are and who these societies are and these cultures are. And if we can't acknowledge them, how are we going to appreciate them?
Yeah.
We appropriate and don't like things that we're not into or that we haven't seen too much in our lives because that's just a natural thing. Any sort of uncharted territory, we're kind of like, oh, what's that over there, right? Before we open ourselves up. And it's more about how do we reverse that? Like how do we reverse the way that we've honestly approached this for so long, like so long. So it's really, really interesting. And there's so many layers to this.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this and so many examples that show, it's everywhere. There's some sort of appreciation and appropriation everywhere.
I have so much to say about this, but I do want to show thank you so much. So Jeremy Lin rocked braids for a couple of games, if I recall. Carmelo wasn't. Yep, you're bringing back my memory. Happy at first, but they worked it out.
And it might have been Melo, but it was definitely Kenyon Martin. Kenyon Martin was someone who had an issue with the hairstyle for sure. And Jeremy came out and responded, right? And if anything, he was more than understanding of the fact that that's how certain people were going to receive it and receive him in that way, right? Did his research, did his homework, explained it, right? And then, funny enough, he even called out Kenyon Martin for having a tattoo in Chinese lettering on his neck and said, do you know where that comes from? Do you know what that means?
I love that.
Or if we're going to call everyone else out, right? Essentially, like I said before, have you swept in front of your own front yard?
Yeah. And Andrea was breaking down the story too. We see in the comments.
So
I'm glad.
And Kenyon Martin shut up very quickly after that. I don't even think he explained where his tattoo came from or his emotional connection to why he put something like that on his body. So that's a great example. Melo definitely had something to say about that, just being a Nick and whatever. But Kenyon Martin, I remember that vividly. I even heard this come up recently on one of their podcasts. And so that's a prime example. You know what I mean? Do you know where it comes from? Have you done the homework? And have you built some sort of emotional connection to whatever this is?
So Andrea said Lynn responded to the situation, pointing out Martin's own tattoos. Just like you said, this incident highlighted the complex discussions surrounding cultural identity and appropriation in the context of the NBA. Yeah, this thing is everywhere, and people really do need to have the right conversations because it comes up even bigger. So Gordon, I'd seen you in the comments talking about it's bigger. We have to have a part 2 because we talk about the music business, right? That's a whole. Well, I'm going to say that in business in general, and I'll talk about it, I guess, when we get to what the difference as we see it between appreciation and appropriation. But I'll just say quickly that there are people that have been making businesses out of things that are not culturally theirs, and then not even giving the respect and reverence to where they got it from. So they're just claiming it, or they're adding something to it, tweaking it. And so since I added a sentence or two or a move or two, yoga, right? I can say this is mine, so I don't have to talk about where it really came from, right? And I think that people do not understand that one of the reasons why it is a huge issue is because it is almost never, we see a little bit more now, but it is almost never the people who this is their culture who are out there making the bucks, right? Bringing home the bag off of this. It is people who do not look like them, who do not come from their culture.
Yoga is such a prime.
Yoga is a great example. Look, I'm in the conflict resolution field, and I watched for years, decades, when restorative justice came around. Listen, I was 25 or so years ago, at least, in a what was called a sentencing circle that was run and taught by Native Americans as a way that they dealt with people who made offenses, when some of them criminal offenses, right? And they may have gone to prison, they may have been ostracized, but it was a way of bringing the community together and having them understand the impact and the effect of their actions, their crime, if it was, on different community members. Like, you are not alone. You are in a community. So when you do something like this, right, we want you to come back into the community or stay in the community, but we have to have a conversation about that. So that is what that's what I was introduced to. And then suddenly, probably 5 years or so after that, the field was bursting with attorneys who were not Native American, starting this restorative justice. Hey, powerful stuff, really good stuff. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying you will be lucky to hear a person who's practicing and making money off of that say, this is a Native American practice. That may be the one sentence you might hear if they acknowledge it at all. They're not going to go into the history. They're not going to talk about it, right, from the standpoint of where it originated and how that came about and how then we came and took it and put it in. No, none of that's happening. So, and that's not the only thing. We talk about yoga, we talk about meditation. Come on, folks. That's, like I said, I have a lot to say on this, because I feel like first of all, there's two things. One is some of this stuff people don't want you to put out there.
Sure.
Because it's sacred.
Great point.
It's sacred. When I went to Hawaii for the second time, I went on business. And so we took this tour, and some of the people on our tour were Hawaiians, right? Because this was for a conflict resolution conference. And so the hula was being done as a show, and it was being done by Hawaiians. The woman next to me, who I've become really friendly with, whispered to me, "You have no idea how mortifying this is for us. The hula is a sacred dance. And we have to stand here and watch show after show. And don't blame it on the people who need to make money and are doing the dance for show, for the tourists." I was one of them at that point in time. I didn't know that that's right, because my previous time in Hawaii, I took the show. I went to the show. I am so blessed that not only did she say that to me, but we had young people there, and they agreed to teach the history of the hula, and they had young people come in and show them how to do it and what each move meant. I mean, I don't blame them around the sacredness of that. And yes, we have to come to some kind of medium, right? Happy medium, but we can't do that unless we're really having the conversations with the people that it matters to. We're not just jumping out there and appropriating stuff, calling it appreciation, when it absolutely is not.
Yeah, and then, the more we commercialize things, just the less that we connect to the human part of all of this, which is what we're ultimately trying to do. It's what we're here to do. Like we're not here on this world to just stake to our own little bubble and to just live in our own little corner in New York City because we moved from wherever we moved from, and now we just are here and I'm not going anywhere, right? It's like, get out there, go talk to people, go ask a question, go ask, like, how's this landing for you? Like, that's not this evil approach or question or whatever, as we've been honestly conditioned to believe that it is. It's not this invasive thing. And if it is for that person, roll with the punches. You know what I mean? Don't let that be a reason to say, well, this is just how they act, and this is just how they do things. And they're just already naturally like this. And I know because I even asked a question and I got met with, please. You know what I mean? Don't be that. Also, don't be one of these yoga instructors who don't know where your studies come from. Those are also the most prime lame example of this is what we're talking about. You know what I mean? And trying to reverse this a little bit. And absolutely. Thanks,
no problem. Yeah, we're glad you brought it up. Yeah, that you weren't sure who
that's
it was.
That's a great example, bro. I just saw that come up on my feed within this week
about the Carmelo and
Kenyon Martin and Jeremy. Just saw that, and it was great.
So two things you can tell I'm passionate, y'all. One, I'm glad you said New York City, because here's to me a really good example. In New York City, we have a big parade, St. Patrick's Day parade. And from the time that I was little, and they would televise it, you would see people of Irish descent. They even made t-shirts, of it. But they would say, today, everybody is Irish. Today, right? It's St. Patrick's Day. So they give you permission to wear your green, to wear your hat, to celebrate, to say they're giving you
St.
permission. But
Patty's
they said today. They
Yeah.
didn't say you honorary and now go with it and every day.
They don't give you a certificate.
No, they said today. And I appreciated that because it was a welcoming in from the actual group.
For sure.
And I think that's important.
Same way with Puerto Rican Day Parade. And you know what I mean? Like when you're there to celebrate and you're there really with like an open heart, open ears, all those things, right? You can feel that from a fellow human being. And so if you can't feel that for yourself with why you're doing certain things, why you're putting on that clothing, why you're moving to that neighborhood, whatever it is, then I'm not saying you have no business being there. That's not the argument. It's more of do the work to find that emotional connection.
Right. And don't be upset when somebody's offended because you're not doing the work of the real true appreciation. Yeah. All right. So let's get to it then. Let's talk about the signs of appropriation. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. It's a fad to you, right? Everybody's doing this. Everybody is jumping on the bandwagon, and I don't want to be left out. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, it looks so good. That's appropriation, because the things that you are taking from another culture are not a fad to them. I told you my story of my sister. I love her. God bless her, rest in peace. Mickey, who just like, this is not a fad to me. Do not do this unless you understand. And if you are jumping on the bandwagon, then it is appropriation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that part of it is, like I said, the emotional connection to it. Mm-hmm. Like if that's not there, then I would just spend some more time on it so that you can find it at some point, because you can find it at some point, right? But if people are just doing things to do things and just their argument for doing it is just, well, I can, it's my right, I can do what I want, and what are you going to do about it, right? Like that's so just not a seed planted for appreciation in any respect of culture. Yeah. So. Oh,
and I gotta add to this: dressing up in blackface, dressing up as a Native American, dressing up in dreadlocks for Halloween or whatever, your little toga party, whatever it is not appreciation. Okay, so let's just end that right there. I don't even know why we selling costumes still like that. But in any case, that's not appreciation, y'all.
I agree with that. I feel like media did a very good job of, I guess, capitalizing off of people's want to do that or need to feel to do that. Because we see it in movies, we see it in shows, we see it in even the animated comedies, right? I watch all of them and stuff, right? But we see that in our films, we see it in all these different things, and it's just it's so putting out the wrong idea behind such an important message. So definitely just something to be aware of, right? Like if it's just something that you want to do because your friends are doing it, or you're moving to that neighborhood because it's cheaper or whatever, right? Like really just think about these things a little bit longer. That's
and there's a difference between cowboy and Indian, right? Because Indian is an actual group of people, a culture, right? Cowboys, yes, there's a culture of being a cowboy, but you're a person, you're in some other ethnic, racial group within that. And yes, there were black cowboys.
Lots of them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, we teaching here today.
No,
all right, but yes, so stop having your kids play that too.
Yeah, that's not as cute as you think it is.
Yeah,
I promise
it's
not. And
it's not
a long-lasting seed you want planted.
No,
for sure.
It's not. It's appropriation if you cash in on it without honoring its heritage. And that's what I was talking about earlier. hey, there are many different ways to live, to, even people calling things alternative medicine when there are so many cultures around the world that do not pop pills.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
They
I cringe when I hear
all
that.
kinds of native, ethnic, cultural remedies, right? That work things out. And so you cashing in and calling it yours. No, I'm not with that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just back to the media thing, right? We used to have, actors of one heritage or culture play actors of another,
Yes.
and be put in the makeup of it,
yes.
and all of these
makeup.
things, and terrible makeup, and we've somehow, with this thought of the world we live in and the advancements we make, right? That that was just so long ago. That's just so long ago. We don't do that anymore. That's not a part of who we are, right? And even if that's something we do less of now, it's unfortunately something that's still in our veins. It's in our bloodstream. It's in our thought patterns.
It's in our
history.
Yeah.
It's a part of our history, and we come from history. So it clearly plays a role in how we're moving in today's society, right? So just I think it's important always to find these reference points, especially when people are calling out the appropriation, right? Like there's reference points that you can turn to that do support them calling out that there's an issue here. And so just when you can land on those, then I think it just brings more openness to the conversation. And some things we don't need to be as open about. Some things it just needs to be cut this out. You're hurting people,
right?
And you're not open to learning how you're hurting us, right? So I think, there's just so much to this topic, but I love the conversation around it so far. It's really good stuff.
And then the third is if you take credit for it, and I've seen that too. Right. It is ridiculous. I think because I'm not, this is more your generation, but there was a whole big thing too around TikTok dances, right? At one point that there were the controversy I saw was there were a couple of Black girls who had started TikTok dances, and then they were taken over.
Never tagged,
right? Never tagged. They became a big thing. They were on the news.
150 million followers, brand deals, life change, all these things with no acknowledgement of the fact that I saw someone else do this, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
We see that all the time.
We got drumming circles, and drumming, yes, is in every culture. But when you talk about the African drums, right, and who was doing that, and now we're making money off of that. And when I say we, I don't mean people who look like me making money off of that in the ways that the healing process of drums, right? Very healing, are being made money off of. It's oh my gosh, so many things, y'all. We got to pay attention. Don't be offended. Understand what people are trying to share with you. And then please be able to have the self-restraint to understand when there are some things that they just want off limits. They want it kept within their culture. Go make money off of something else and go and give and stop taking credit for it because you added a little twist or turn, right?
I like that, because adding that twist or turn is really for your comfort and not theirs. So I love that. That's great stuff. And next, I think we just want to talk about just some signs of appreciation, really what that looks like and how you can spot it for yourself or in other people, right? And so I think here, first one, we've already talked about a little bit, right? But doing your homework, right? Do some research, talk to the people, all the things that we had said before. I really think putting yourself out there, seeing it as something that you have to, enter, a space that you have to enter, and to enter, there are certain requirements, right? Even though the, requirements are not like a dress code, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, it's more about open heart, open ears, right? An open mind, right? Coming in with questions that you don't feel like you have the answer to already, right? And just asking those questions, right? It's a very vulnerable place for both parties to do that and to experience each other in that way. But I think that part of what alleviates some of that charge in the room when those two dynamics come together is by doing some homework, doing some research, taking the lines out of, someone else's script, but not out of, like corruption, really out of consideration, really out of energy preservation for one another. Those are just some simple ways to do it. But I really think you got to throw yourself out there. You got to enter some spaces. You got to make some new friends. You got to like all of those things. And to do that, it's a very vulnerable thing, but with such long-lasting benefits to your individual life and then the collective, journey that we're all on this on this point.
We are all on this journey together. Shout out to Melissa. We saw your comment earlier. Yes, do your homework. There is no question. It is really it's important. I don't think any of us should be as arrogant to assume that we just made up something here, right? Or there's no history to it because you don't know it. If I don't know something, we're living in an age when you can look up anything. Don't talk to me about fake news. There's enough truth out there that you can do your homework and find out the history of something. So I absolutely agree. If you've done your homework, then you and also mention that you did your homework, right? It is definitely appreciation.
Yeah.
And don't do your homework to figure out what you could just change or add to make it yours.
Right.
Do your homework to
so
honor.
You can wear that hairstyle. So you can,
do your homework to honor.
Absolutely.
Right? To really honor that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just going to throw this up, Melissa, right? But conversation is enlightening, especially for a white woman who looks to Harriet Tubman for inspiration, right? Going to colleagues, right? And asking the question, is it okay if I wear this? Is it appropriate, right? What's the message, right? I don't think these are big deals. Like, I don't think these are big questions in the grand scheme of, they seem big because we've been taught not to ask them and to just do what we want and to just kind of deal with the consequences later, right? And so I love that. It's such a small step that you took asking that question, because the answer could be different for every single person who is even of the same culture, right? Like, no one's a monolith, right? Everyone has their own experiences and own landings with even shared experiences, right? And so I love that you pride yourself on asking that question, because it's not a big one, and it's creating so much more safety than honestly, by asking. Yeah. So next, pay homage. And I think really, like, what I mean by this specifically is to really really specifically name what you appreciate and or identify with when verbalizing to yourself or to other people, this area of culture that you have loved and adopted for your own life, right? And what I mean by that is, like, the same way that we differentiate naming, oh, like, this made me angry and this has me frustrated, right? This has me sad and this has me discouraged, right? Like, whatever it really is, there's just so many words out there and so many, like, definitions and things that, like, I just don't think we use enough of, right? Because we're probably just there's so many reasons, right? But we're so used to just like a shared vocabulary almost, right? And there are so many emotions that I believe a lot of people don't even know still exist, right? And so when you're really able to get specific and kind of paint some of that picture for people, I think that it just makes that connection that much more deeper, right? So it could be the freedom of expression of this culture that you really identify with, right? And naming it as such. It could be the resilience and mindset in the face of adversity from this culture that I really identify with and appreciate, right? Just really naming it, painting that picture. I think that the deeper you go, the more to the soul, to the heart, to, really where people's, core are, then just the better the relationship can flourish, even through difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. I understand. And Not everyone has the same upbringing, but I'm grateful to have parents who were people themselves who always appreciated difference, but also always put themselves out there to learn about said differences and then own and bring those differences into the room without, corrupting them, right? So you guys would name it. You guys would honor. You guys would say, we bring in these ancestors. We bring in this energy. We bring in, this piece of art because this is what it symbolizes. And this is how we identify. Like, I've really come from that model. So I think that it's a model that, really does benefit in the long run for long-lasting, different relationships.
Yeah, I say pay homage. Absolutely. I agree with you. When I went to Italy, it was so exciting to meet these young Italians at a restaurant who wanted to show us everything about the restaurant, the culture, and the language, and the food, and to give us recipes. So we had the real thing, right? And I call myself making Italian food for, almost since I started learning to cook. I'm not saying it wasn't good. It was good. But to have that, right, pay homage to, wow, this is the real deal. I got the real recipes. It's just a very different kind of thing. And that's real appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then next, I'm actually going to let Dr. Lynn take this.
Yeah. Hire, refer, donate. I'm so tired of people making money off of something that's not theirs, right? And then you don't even think to say, oh, I would love to have someone from this culture actually in on this business with me, or let's make some money off of this together. Or, if they don't want to do that, but they're like, you go ahead, do your thing. Then if you know that they do business, they do the same kind of thing in business, refer people to them. Stop taking everything for yourself and then not naming where you got it from as it is. Refer people. Donate to the different causes for the culture, to the person's business. But in particular, I don't see the hiring piece happening when people are appropriating, right, somebody else's cultural model for doing something, and knowing that you got access that they do not have, and y'all could be making that bag together.
Yeah, I agree 100%, especially on the hiring thing. I love the way you put that. We don't even see it for like segments on shows, or even even in companies, right, that are doing something like a segment where, you're honoring someone or something, and we don't even see it then. So I definitely agree with the hire and donate for sure. But even referral, referral is so, I feel like we're referring things we don't even realize we're referring. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much it's happening. It's so much to the point where it can be subconscious at times. So bringing that to your, your frontal lobe and just really being more conscious of that, I believe really will open up a lot more doors and opportunities for people of these differences.
Yeah.
Difference is not a bad thing.
That's
this
a great
world
thing.
was made the way it was made for a reason, and it was to honor, respect, and at the very least, be very curious about,
respectfully curious
about,
not there to steal. Yeah.
respectfully curious about these differences, and there's a place for all of it. There's a place for all of us, right? So there shouldn't even be a conversation about better or worse, what's helping us culturally or not. It's those are people's cultures, and let's do the work to understand them, and from there then we can talk about how to make this world even better.
Yeah. Shout out to Melissa St. Clair. You've always paid homage. You've referred. You let people. Yeah. Shout out to you for the work that you do.
So,
well, I loved this. I think
we can tell. Go back and watch the footage. We can tell. Yeah, there's a lot here.
There is a lot here. I don't disagree with you, Gordon, that we might need to do a part 2 and really spice it up. But in any case,
I can talk music for hours.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. I mean, there's so many
I can
different
talk
things.
music for hours.
All right. So I'm just grateful that you tuned in on this one. And if you tuned in before, thank you. If this is your first time tuning in, please tune in again. It actually is just about an hour-long show. So if you tune in, stay with us right through as long as you can to the end. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you want to tune in to more, check us out on e360tv.com on the Trajectory channel. We are on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV, and more. You can also check us out on Facebook at Working It Out TV Show, YouTube. You want to subscribe here, Working It Out Across Generations. And then please, if you want to reach out to our email, send us any love, send us any questions, send us any show topics, any comments, anything you want to send to us personally. Here's our email, working it out across the generations at e360tvlive.com. Guys, you know what we say. Every like, every share, every follow, every piece of engagement truly means the world to us. We are building to something bigger than us. We are big on small is all, right? And you guys are helping us do that simply by being here, engaging in some difficult conversations. So we appreciate you guys for your vulnerability. Thank you for having me back and welcoming me back. You know, I know it's my show, but still really appreciate you guys, you know, rocking out with Mom for a few days. And yes, this you too. Good to be back. You know what I mean? This is a great show. I love what we're doing here, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So you know what we say, conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. So go out there and find out what that is. I'm Justin.
And I am Dr. Lynn.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.